Oh, any opposed? I'll get this in a minute. The next item is approval of the minutes from September the 11th, 2014.
Move to approve.
Any comments? On page 4, it says, Basel states he thinks the increase in premiums will bring less stress to employees than the increase in premiums. And I think it's supposed to be deductibles. Now, do we still vote
Yes. All in favor?
All
of
in
the-
favor?
Of the amended.
of the amended minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Motion carries.
Motion carries. The CFO will now report on September's finances.
Before he leaves town.
Who, eh? Yeah. That's just all the numbers added up. I'm really excited. Let's see, we had in revenues, we had 312,560, and expenditures, we had 407,518, which is right in line with our projections. Look at the year-to-date. Our projected revenues was $1,049,189. We've actually brought in $1,050,480. So we are above our projections, $1,291. As far as expenditures year-to-date, we projected we would have spent $1,328,683. We have actually spent $1,232,377. So we are under projections, $96,306 in expenditure category. Whew. So I guess all in all in the good, we're 96,000. Well, I think I have that on this page. We are $97,597 ahead of where we thought we'd be at this point in time. We are greatly anticipating Presto doing their job and getting some property tax money coming in. We've had some people come by wanting to pay, and we have not had the bill. So we hopefully that will get out next week, right, Brandy? So
So would you make that clear, because the county bill went out?
right. I'm not sure what the protocol. Brandy may be able to address this a little better, but I do know last year they got out on October 15th. Hopefully next year we will start whatever we need to do to get it done where the people have the bill in their hand by at least by October 1st. But it didn't happen this year, and just mainly because new and not real sure what the protocol is. But
Is that an actual savings of 96,000, or is that postponement of some bills, or is there a reason for that?
everything's pretty much come into line, so that's pretty much. I'd have to let me look on this page.
Stole my question.
Well, yeah, part of that is still the liability. Yeah, the TML, the workman's comp liability insurance, which we were expected to pay quite a bit that first month, and then now we've paid some, but not near what we projected. So that's probably let's see, that's a,
37,000 of it is the contractual services.
right, and that is something that I have called on 2 or 3 times, and I'm gonna, they don't seem like in too big of a hurry to get that done, and then I'm gonna, hopefully not pay that at least for another month or 2.
But that will come out of,
Yes,
that will,
yes. And then, let's see down here, that the property and liability, that there's 55,000 there, so that's pretty much the difference.
so we will be paying that out.
Yes,
But we're not overrun. So if we paid that, we would still be on.
Right.
Just as we projected.
yes.
When do we, Don, I didn't bring your sheet with me. We got so much paper, it's starting to get, yeah, it won't fit on my little thing anymore. I have to go to the next size up or better glasses. What month do we start? I know these first 2 or 3 months, we expected to be at deficit. When do we start? When does it start back up? January? December? When do we start?
December for sure, hopefully November will see a substantial.
We're actually projecting to have a negative every month up till February. But hopefully we will get property taxes in sooner than that, sooner than we have in the past.
I sent my note to go ahead and pay mine.
So you can do that?
Well, I don't do that. They haven't written me back, but I did, since I don't pay them, it comes out of an escrow account, but I sent them a note and said, there's sufficient money in there to pay it. Pay it.
Last year, December was the biggest property tax month.
And I think that's probably how we budgeted it this year, but we have some payments that we have to make in December. and
Right.
That's why it wasn't gonna
Right.
Work until-
show up too much.
I guess that's pretty much it. When I sent out an email, I got the final draft of the final draft. If approved by the board, she wanted me to send it back to the board just for one more look over. And then, if I hadn't heard anything from the board for changes, the official audit will be issued the following week.
Did we ever find out on the credit card discrepancies, how much that is?
I have not, and I meant to get to that this week.
I sent them both an email, that's why I wanted the email address from you guys. I sent them both an email on Monday, asking them for that information. Exact number of credit card discrepancies and an itemized list of how much they were. And I haven't heard anything, so any conversations, I know you're leaving.
I actually called them as a member of the committee, and they gave me the numbers. It was like 5 of them,
Okay,
5 or 6 of them. All of them were before Tom came, except one.
and how
And,
much
and it
dollars?
was, I didn't get the total, and I didn't bring it with me either, but it was like 300, 900, 450, 83, something like that.
Wasn't a substantial amount
It's
of money
probably $3,000.
total. I was hoping more like $40 gas bills.
I was really anticipating it all being on dog purchases, dog food purchases. We struggle to get those receipts on those for that purchase for some reason.
The one that was on your watch was $435 from the police department.
Okay.
So do we need to try to get those,
Yeah,
get an explanation for them?
I think we do. I'd like to see, speaking for Wayne, maybe I should shut up while Wayne speaks, but for the finance committee, I think it's important to know, are they spread out, like one from this department, one from this department, one from this department, or do they all come from the police department? If they all come from the police department, that's a different deal, it doesn't sound, that's not $25 out of the petty cash fund, $500-600 is, you ought to think about that,
I think one of them was $900.
Explanation and all.
So we'll want to follow up on that. I may try again, or want to give them a call again and see if you can itemize list for us, and you have a contact,
Okay.
talk to them. I just would like, I'd like to know from, just to know whether we have an issue or just do we need to tighten up all across the board. Just
$900 sounds like a training session. They didn't get a receipt, but I don't know.
Well, they know. They have been told. Like I said, if she said just one was since I've been on, but everybody knows they need, if they want to check, they've got to bring what it's for, and there's got to be a manager sign off on it.
And they're supposed to code it for you, aren't they?
Right.
Where to put it.
One of the other items on the audit was the bank recs. Do we as a committee need to see those, or just ask Tom? You're having to sign off on them, right?
I have to open them up and sign off.
And he signs the reconciliation each month.
Okay. So we'll ask you every month if you've done, if you have it, or if you're having a problem, and that'll be okay.
Okay, as of, in August, I was $0.00 off.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's right, Donna. I just think as long as we inquire, and then if there's a problem, then we can help in some way, but I don't, since we got 2 people already checks and balances, we might get crowded.
Okay. Any other discussion on current finances?
I guess this is an open thing. I didn't expect it just 3 months in to be dancing in the street, but I also didn't expect to be having a funeral dirge either. So, to me, it looks like Donna did a really good job of spreading it out for us, and that we are doing exactly as we expected to do. So, really too early to think of a great materialization of additional funding, right?
Correct. I have been, however, grateful for the increases in the sales tax. They have not kept up to speed with our projections. This is our first month we've been under. We projected 105. We came in at 102 and some change, which is still up from the previous month. But we
Not as much as
we're just wanting but we were hoping
And I think we moved the projection up 5,000 more next month, didn't we?
I believe it goes 105 for a couple of months until after the holiday season, and then I think in
110.
I think we go to 100, and yeah, and it even goes up more than that after the holiday, after Christmas.
I believe, if I'm correct, that month that we were down, I think, was that not the tax-free weekend
Yeah.
they had?
I'm not sure.
I think that's probably the reason that we were down.
Yeah, we did have tax-free.
And how are we doing?
And I'm thinking this is the month Taco Bell. We may see something from that.
So our gas and oil is stabilizing?
Yes, did you understand through my explanation of the last report, what was the cause of that? Or do you need another one?
Why don't you tell us, because I don't remember reading it.
Okay. We, originally, most of the fleet used a card through Fleet Advantage, which you go up to the gas station, you pump your gas, give us a receipt, and you pay 30 days later. Well, we switched over to getting, I'd say 95% of the fleet getting most of their gas in our station out here. Well, we pay them when they pump. So we hit a little area where we were paying the 30 days out for the gas pump this month, plus we were paying for the gas put in to our, so it's kind of like a double whammy, and it's even if stuff evened out. I think it'll be totally back to projections next month.
So there's no individual items that you're overly concerned about?
No. Well, I take that back. I did put down two that I'm gonna keep looking at, and I've called the business taxes on line item 31810. I did some research from last year, and we were almost at 13,000 at this time last year, and we're at 3,500 this year. And yes.
I have an explanation for that. The state this past year changed the way that businesses file their business taxes. They no longer file according to their category of business. Now they file according to their fiscal year. So we're going to see a big jump. Most businesses' fiscal year end is December. So we're going to see a big jump in January from those. Where throughout, otherwise, it was usually, a lot of them ended in September previously. So we would have seen that this month.
Yeah, and that's what I was told by the state. Yeah, I appreciate that. As I put in here, most likely changes is business tax filing periods. But until I see the money, I'm always nervous. But that makes me feel better. You saying that. And then city court fines and fees. I've talked with Diane about that. We're down comparatively from years past. We look back, I guess, 3 years, and we're substantially down on traffic tickets issued. So I believe, I think that people are just driving slow in our town.
That's a wonderful thing. We won't get run over.
Yes. Those two are substantially, jumped out at me. As far as the expenditures, most of them can be, if they're kind of off, most of them can be because we just missed the timing. We didn't know anything, just like the property, just like these right here, we just missed the month, or we changed it after the fact, and it'll even out over time.
Okay. Discussion?
Sorry.
That's okay. Next item is old business. Discuss and/or take action on a stabilization plan. And I will go ahead and add discuss and/or take action on the fund balance policy because they're kind of going to go together. Okay?
Is this different than?
Yes, I made a couple of changes, and I made changes in number 2. As a committee, I guess we just need to start in number 1, but I made changes in number 2 and number 3. I think the first thing we probably need to do is get at least 1 month of general fund expenditures set aside.
You see that as how much money?
$450,000. And then, on the segregate, I think the next biggest thing is to segregate our restricted, funds into specific accounts, with state street aid taking the highest priority and school facilities tax taking the second priority. The school facilities tax is a committed fund, and I would like to recommend spreading out that, fully funding it over a 3-year period, which, you know, you said we'd have to make cuts if we were gonna fully fund it, and yeah, I totally agree. I don't think it's equitable or possible to get it all funded in 1 year. I think a big thing is adopting a fund balance policy that sets thresholds. We can have 2 reserve accounts, an emergency stabilization account, which is just for emergencies that affect the life and health and property of our citizens, and a unassigned fund reserve that MTAS and GFOA recommend a 2-month balance there. You know, if we just wanted to have one, I would push toward, just because of everything I've learned and everybody that I've talked to, so that's a minimum recommendation is 2 months. So even if we didn't do this stabilization account, I'd push to have at least 2 months, and then set up thresholds to be obtained within 3 years. Like I said, the wording changed or timing can change, but that just kind of I think that's an obtainable time frame, and I believe based on whatever the board wants to do, I think the policy is, you know, get those thresholds, and then once that 3 years over, you know, we have the thresholds in place. What are we looking for? Let me pass this out now.
I'm confused.
Okay.
So how many accounts are we going to have? We're going to have the main checking account, right?
Yes.
In that main checking account, we're gonna have the revenue for the month, the expenses of the month, plus $450,000.
Yes.
Okay. Then we're gonna have a stabilization fund that is on top of that, that is not in that checking
In
account,
a separate account.
separate account. And we're thinking that needs to be another $450,000.
They say 5% of whatever your general fund expenditures are. So
So
it,
that'd be $300,000
Yeah.
per se, or whatever,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. Okay. Then an unassigned fund balance threshold is what? Is it those two things, or does that make for a third account?
that would be a third account, which we already have established through LGIP.
Uh-huh.
I would recommend keeping
Yeah,
the other month in there.
okay, another $450K in there. So what we're trying to do is to have 1.2 million spread over 3 accounts that doesn't factor into revenue and expense or anything like that, that's available for emergencies or overflows or that sort of thing. Okay.
The first one, yes.
Well, they all would be.
The 450 is for the cash flow, right? The first one?
The first 450 is basically to make sure that your cash flow always works. But the 300K is where you go if, for some reason, the 450 needs help, right?
I think it is really for defined emergencies like tornadoes and floods and things like that. So I would not make it my second priority, I'd make it my third. The other one, the one that you have is third, I would make second.
I
And
guess-
it is actually for reserves for, if things don't work out like we think they're going to.
Yeah. I guess my comment would be that, simple man with simple ideas. Keeping it all straight seems to have been a problem in the past. Now, Tom may be more competent than maybe we've, or put more effort into it, I guess. I don't know about people's competence, but the bottom line is, why wouldn't those two accounts just be one account? We would try to keep afloat in a checking account, a base of $450,000. And then we would try to keep a savings account or reserve account or whatever you want to put on it of 2 months or $750,000, whatever it comes out to be. And that way we're not trying to balance 3 accounts. It seems to me it's easier to have rules about 1 or 2 accounts than adding a 3rd account. But I just wanted to make sure I understood, because I kept coming up with about the same thing you did, that we were looking and trying to put our hands on around $1 million that we had never touched. That it just stayed there all the time.
I think that's
Okay.
where I'm going.
So how we design it is really, I'm not sold. I mean, that's just, to me, it's just easier to keep up. The fewer accounts we have, the easier it is to keep up with. And it might be easier to have one account that has more money in it than it is to have 2 accounts that have smaller money and say, well, is this right for us to go to this one or whatever? What do y'all think? What do you think?
If we made the rules tight enough that we couldn't just go there to spend money, just because we didn't budget properly or something like that, then it would be fine to have them both together.
And I think that's where a solid fund balance policy on if you go below your threshold, what is the protocol? And it talks about reporting it in here in the next minutes and what your plan of action is going to be after that. I think communication is key. I got the hint that several folks didn't know, thought there was X amount of money here when there was not, and this, that, and the other. So I feel like if everybody's on the same page, it would keep it very simplified. And as far as setting up the thing, where we've already got it set up, the checking account, I like to call it sometimes the operating account. We could keep half of the reserves in there and then half of it in the LGIP reserve account. It's already established. If we did a separate stabilization fund just for catastrophe expenses, we could. I would recommend not accounting for it there. I'd recommend putting that in a separate account. But if we don't do that, that's fine too. I mean, I think going one direction is as good as the other. I think the main thing is get it going in a direction.
Well, I'm just trying to lay it out in my mind how it all works. So let me just ramble here for a minute. Tell me if I'm understanding.
Do you need to have a thing so you can hear it better on the?
So let me ramble. We start, every year stands on its own. So as we've discussed before, technically we start the year with 0 money in the operating balance.
Right.
Now, as we implement this, what we're going to say is we're not going to start with 0. We're going to start with $450,000 in the operating balance. And then, say in July, we're going to have revenue come in and expenses go out. And then hopefully we will budget well enough that revenue exceeds expenses so that we don't touch the 450.
Right.
But if we do touch the 450, it'll be to cover that. So based upon Donna's projections this year, then it is possible that the first 4 months of the year, we will actually dip below the 450. And then we will, in the second half of the year, we'll be able to bring that back up so that at the end of the year, that line item will be $450,000.
Right,
Have I got my hands around that right?
yes.
Then there'll be a second fund that should the $450,000 not be enough, that we can tap into, called the stabilization fund, because of some event outside of our control, not because we were bad budgeters, not because we decided we wanted to buy something. But say, for instance, a natural disaster causes us, or we have a cold winter, or we have something that is outside of our control, that we have to have additional revenues on top of that 450 that we've already padded it with. But then we have a third account that is our normal, unobligated, attached reserve, really a savings account, I guess the mayor used that word, and I used to not like that, but I guess she's right. Savings,
Rainy day fund.
rainy day fund.
And it's an extension of that operating account.
That is an extension that we don't go to unless it is just absolutely necessary. And absolutely necessary, again, is something that it is determined by our documents. But my only suggestion was that if we really want to segregate that money, that we make it that we don't go to the reserve without a 2/3 vote, which requires 4 members to approve that. And that, because there may be, that one of us could dissent, but if 2 of us dissent, then it doesn't happen. We have to solve it some other way.
Only 2/3 is that finance committee of the BOC.
That's BOC, 2/3 of the BOC.
Let's go through this, and I believe, unless anything needs to be adjusted.
Am I
Yes,
thinking along this? Okay. I
Yes.
just want to make sure I understood what I was reading.
this first paragraph kind of describes the reason we're creating the policy. Next, of course, these are some of the state changes that have happened recently. It gives the definitions of the 5 categories of fund balance. I have anything in here that's in bold and underlined, I have typed in here that thinking we may or may not want to put it in here. But I've put in our funds that we have that in their classifications. So right now, we only have funds in restricted, committed, and unassigned. All of these reserves will be unassigned except for if we put a stabilization account for just emergency catastrophe type, and then it explains it down here, but that would be a committed fund. It would take the board, it would be, couldn't touch it for any other reason unless at some point down the road, this policy was changed. It talks about non-spendable and restricted funds, and then it talks about order of spending, and then authority to commit funds, and then it talks in here about the stabilization fund. And like I said, if purpose of providing funds for an urgent event that affects the safety of the general public, flood, tornado, etc. We put the 5%. We can change that percent to whatever. Says the recognition of an urgent event must be established by the governing body or their designee. I guess that could be the city manager. If established by the governing body, designee, blah, 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 I think the main thing is, in the event that the balance drops below the established level, what do we do then? I think it's important to have that in here. And it gives us, in this example, it gives us 4 years to get it back to the level the minimum 5%. Authority,
I think that's too long.
well, and then we can change whatever.
I would think that this would be used, like we had the ice storm here several years ago. I don't know how hard it hit Fairview, but it hit other places really bad. I lived here then. I was so worried about Nashville, I didn't think about us. But, you know, that would require a lot of extra work and maybe even equipment and that kind of thing.
I agree with Donna. I don't, 4 years bothers me a little bit. I like for us to, sometimes you have to because it's practical, but depending upon when you would have to go into it. But I really like 2 years because generally that's the time between elections. And that's the time between the makeup of the board could change. So, and I don't like making legislation that is, and this, you know, this, I mean, it's a judgment call, but I mean, legislation that's necessarily binding on my successor will be. And you know, if we put this in for 4 years and then we had an ice storm in October of whenever my term's up, and whoever followed me, they'd be stuck with this plan for 4 years. I mean, and their whole term. And I don't, so I think we ought to, we can always come in and deal with it if we're not doing it. But if it's around $250,000 and we ought to be able to come up with that in a couple of years to repay that. What do you think of 2, Don?
I agree.
I feel a lot more comfortable in stretching it out for 4 years. We're gonna do this, let's do this. That'd be okay with you?
Perfect time because it is an election year.
Right.
And out here, the unassigned fund balance, and of course down here it does have fund balance. Now this is what I call, what used to be called general fund reserves. Unassigned fund balance equal to 2 months of general expenditures, which my calculations would be 900,000, 450 in the operating account, 450 in the LGIP. And in the event it dips below, the city's government body will develop a plan to replenish the fund balance to be established minimal level within 2 years. And see, any budget amendment that will result in the unassigned fund balance dropping below the minimum level will require 2/3 vote of the city's governing body. I think it's a good statement. I'm not sure if that's over here in the stabilization fund. I think that's just, that, like I said, that is just in a dire strait emergency. It's kind of, it's a different, it works a little bit differently.
So is this 2 months, the original 450,
That's 1 month.
and but you're talking, that is part of this 2 months?
Yes.
Okay.
I think if that's the way you're gonna do it, I think we're gonna have to show that. You're gonna always, in that first 450, you're gonna always be going up, you know, into that line, and then it can come back, into that line, come back. You don't want it to come to a 2/3 vote every time. I think whatever this unassigned fund balance is back here, maybe should be,
So it's calling it a minimum. So the minimum has to equal 1 month.
yeah, 1 month. I think that should be.
We're gonna establish 2 months, but that first.
But we're going to keep that LGIP account in there.
$450,000 or whatever it turns out to be, 1 month's operating expenses.
Okay.
But you'll
Because
have
we're always gonna, the first 4 months of the year, we're always gonna be in that first 450.
Okay.
Right?
I'm sorry.
The first 4 months of every year, we're gonna be in in and out of that 450.
Right,
Just simply because that's the way the revenue cycle works.
right.
So we don't wanna have to come before the board every time you have to go $15 below the $450,000 line.
Right.
So this one should say 1 month. Right? Yeah, right. So that you actually never.
So an appropriate level of the unassigned fund balance of 2 months should be maintained in the general fund. The minimum will be 1 month. And that allows us to use that.
Okay, where do you want to change the wording? Or where your unassigned fund may be assessed, and where are you
In that
reading?
first paragraph, an appropriate level of unassigned fund balance should be maintained in the general fund.
Fund balance of 2 months should be maintained,
Yeah,
of 2 months operating expenses. Or expenditures, or however you like it. Should be maintained in the.
Yeah.
In order to cover unexpected expenditures and revenue shortfalls. And then the fund balance policy establishes a minimum
of 1 month, because they're gonna have, that will kick you into having to ask permission to use the 1 month.
Right, unless you drop below the $450,000. Yeah, because that's when the 2/3 kicks in, is if you drop below the $450,000.
Do we need verbiage in this line up here, any budget amendment, should this paragraph be below that 1 month? This, any budget amendment, would result in the unassigned fund balance dropping below the minimum?
Yes,
Bring this paragraph below
yes,
the 1 month?
yes.
So if it's gonna go under that 1 month, it's gotta be voted on and approved.
It's gonna get below 1 month, so that gives you from, amount to play with to cover your expenses, but
We also need to word it so that you can't pass a resolution to spend the two months. That first month is really for cash flow. It's not really, and if somebody comes and asks for money, you can't give it away. You have to find the money somewhere else. You know what I'm trying to say?
No, I'm with you, I just don't know how to word it. Something along the lines of the unassigned fund balance, half or 1 month of operating expenses is designated as the cash flow money.
I'd say designated to be, or designated to be in the operating, well, see, it's all considered the same account, whether it's in the LGIP or the operating.
Right, but what Donna's saying, and I agree with it, is what she's saying is that we get a whim and decide we want to try to buy this property out here in front of City Hall, that we should not be able to go to this monies and use that money to buy that property out there. Am I understanding it right? That this money, even though it's unassigned, it is not available for half of it. Well, actually, all of it is available if our revenues fall short or a natural disaster or you need it for cash flow. Half of it is available without you having to ask. The other half is available with a 2/3 vote. But it's not available, these monies are not available for purchase of property, purchase of cars, purchase of anything. It's not.
It's not available for operating expenses.
It's not, well, yeah, it is, because he takes half of it.
Well,
It's not available for board discretionary spending.
Yes.
Nice. Are you writing in where it should be? 'Cause I'm,
Is that in the first line?
This fund is the resilient fund balance in the general fund. It is not available for board discretionary spending. I mean, that's what I think. Designed to keep, to be available to even out our cash flow and cover unexpected expenses beyond our control. That's what it's for, right?
I think in this first paragraph, we put that in, and then we put one month will be kept in the checking account, operating checking account, and 1 month will be kept in the LGIP account.
That's fine. to put that
And
in there,
then you come down here to the 1 month, you know, you'll always have that 1 month in the LGIP.
too. Right.
and
The
you'll-
LGIP funds, 1 month will be, and as the budget grows, the amount grows.
Right.
So if we start out with operating expenses of $450,000, yet next year, for some reason, we approve a budget that says $500,000 worth of operating expenses, then, we have to increase both those funds.
Do we want to put something in here on a review?
This will be reviewed annually as part of the budget process.
Either annually, or I've seen recommended at least every 2 years, like right after the new election, where the new people know the policy.
I give it to us, give it to the finance committee, we'll review it
Okay.
annually and provide a recommendation of the fund amount to the Board of Commissioners for,
Okay. You got that?
of whoever our newbie is to the board, that job. Might as well make them unpopular.
I think this is going to be an important document because it's going to answer a lot of questions, and it's also going to give us some thresholds and some. If anybody has any questions, you know, we can say, well, let's look at the policy, and
Can I add one thing, go back a little bit?
sure.
When we're talking about using restricted funds, I have always thought, and I guess I can be persuaded otherwise, but I have always thought that our budget should be our real budget. Doesn't include anything from any of the restricted funds. Each time we go into a restricted fund, that it is a separate item, and we do a budget amendment as part of that approval, and it is not part of the overall budget. Because when I look at our budgets, go back and look at all of our budgets, they are presented in a somewhat inflated manner, because we'll go ahead and say, well, we're gonna buy the park truck, we're gonna go ahead and take $35,000 out of the park fund and put it over there. When in reality, what I would like to get in the habit of presenting beginning next year is a true operating budget. This is what it takes to run the city. This is what our income is. And then I think we can match those two, rather than even worrying about that. And if we are going to buy something from the park, that is an ad hoc transaction. It doesn't get caught in all this mess. So that what we're driving here is that our revenue is $5 million. Our operating expenses must be less than $5 million. Does that make sense?
And on that subject, I would like to see us get checks for each account, and instead of transferring in and out, we keep the operating budget clean, and we write checks out of these accounts.
I don't think you can do that with the LGIPs, but I don't know, maybe you can.
You can't. Here's something that I've thought about,
That's a
and
good idea.
when I write a check for facilities fund, we've got it set up in our accounting system. Of course, you've got unassigned is 110, and you've got facilities is 300, and drug fund is 619, and then your check writing number is 11210. Well, you can write it out of any of those funds. I don't see what problem it would be to add state street aid and give it its own number, and it can keep it accounted for. And whenever I write a check, it has, say it's 400. State street aid's 400. It'd be account 400, 11210, and it automatically keeps up with it. What gets confusing is when it doesn't have its own number. You're writing checks out of 110 for state street aid. So I think that could be done without a lot of problem. And that would be one way to keep up with it. And then another way is if it is have its own separate account, when you're transferring money in to pay it, to me, I have no problem accounting for it. What I have a problem with, if it's so easy to write it out of that account, then maybe it gets set aside and you don't think about it, or somebody else does it in your absence and you don't know about it. So I'm just,
Well, I think we definitely need to move the state street aid into its own fund. The school contract actually says to keep it outside the general fund.
right.
So I don't know what we want to do about that.
I've got a separate fund already set up for that account that has a little bit of money in it, just under $7,000. So, as I get it, I can move that into, it's an LGIP account. Now, it is a general fund account. And as right now, state street aid is a general fund account. I think the state is going to be moving, we're a rarity. Most municipalities are required to have a separate, not mix state street aid in with, and I foresee in the near future, the state not allowing us to do it the way we've been doing it.
Well, when we move it, I think we just need to move it into its own fund.
I
its own
agree.
account.
I don't disagree with that. Tom and I, even before the committee got started, we talked about, that was one of the problems. They kept putting all the money into one account, and while it was legally acceptable, the reality is that it causes you to think you've got more money available than what you really have. And that's how something would come up that it was a legitimate expense of the money, and yet the money would never get back into that fund because I guess it's a characteristic of all the CFOs, they get real nervous about how low their checking account gets. So I agree with you, Don. I think they all need to be separate funds. My only confusion was I couldn't understand the 2 versus the 3, but I've got that straight now, so if you screw me up,
I would like to talk about how we're going to arrive at these funds. I think we need to have, of course, any extra money that we have at the end of the year will go toward the $450,000. We actually happen to have $450,000, which we want. We could go ahead and move all the school fund out. But what I would like to see is a line item in next year's budget of 40 or 50,000 that goes to these funds. And I know that's hefty.
And that's something when we start on the budget, we need to look at. I mean, I know,
We're not gonna get there if we just go with,
whatever surplus at the end of the year. I think it, at a minimum, should be $30,000, but so that both funds are fully funded after 2 years. But at a maximum, if we can afford 50, that's fine. And it could be $30,000 the first 4 months of the year, and then 50 for the next 8, or however we chose to do it. But I think we do need to have a line item that says, fund replenishment, or however we want to call it, and it comes off the top. When the sales tax check comes in, you make that deposit, you move that money.
well, and I think, 100, if we want to break this down even more, I think 100% of any overages need to go in this first, the 1 month reserves. And then the next, I mean,
any
I'm
overages of what?
anything like,
At the end of the year, or?
I'm talking, I'm gonna try to have $450,000 in my checking account at the end of the month, trying to get to there. That's my first priority. Then my second priority is, once I have that 450,000, if I have anything over that, I think it needs to go into state street aid. And I'm kind of the snowball. I kind of think it's better to attack one more aggressively. Now, I think we need to be doing school facilities. We've got this library to build and all that, but
I actually think at the end of the year, we should move state street aid.
I agree.
That should be we should have enough money to do that.
I agree.
So that will just take care of that one.
Right. That should be taken care of this year,
At the end of the
probably by January or February.
We are underfunded in the school facilities tax and state street aid, is that right? Those
Well,
are the two.
really, if you put the numbers to it, it's really just the school facilities.
It gets real close. It gets close, but I think we'll still have it.
So I guess I kind of agree with Donna that, let's say at the end of the year that we have got a $250,000 surplus. Let's just be optimistic. Then we take whatever it takes to bring State Street aid whole first, because it's going to be a smaller amount. And then whatever you have left over is that you're moving toward that $450,000. And we put a line item in to replenish school facilities tax at X amount of dollars per month. That should cover us to have a plan in place to replenish it, take care of the state street aid, and you are then able to build up your checking account with your surplus towards your $450,000. And then once you get your $450,000 in there, once we get street aid and the school facilities tax, then we can take all that money we were using to repay those things and build that other reserve fund up very quickly. Are you talking about on top of straight school facilities tax, doing a little bit toward that untouchable reserve as we go along?
No, I think after we get our 450,000, I think we need to do the school facilities tax then.
And then the big reserve, the untouchable reserve.
I think the emergency needs to be last as well.
Yeah. And the
That
other
stabilization.
thing is, while we are taking the money out, even if things worked out wonderful and we got that done next year, we would just continue on with that 30 or 50,000 and that go into capital projects or vehicle replacements.
Something.
I mean, those things have to be done. We know they're gonna have to be done, and so we need to be all along to get it done when we need it. So it's not a question of, we have a plan in place for tracking the vehicles, and we know when they're gonna be due to be replaced, and it's not a big deal. We will already have the money.
Well, I pulled the debt management plan, which we had passed, I guess even before.
It just looked like right before I got here.
And the debt management plan says that ideally we will keep our debt below 10%, which is what we are. We are around 8%, maybe a little less. and that we will never exceed 20%. That's already law here. We already have the debt management plan. So if we don't borrow any more money, except maybe on a short-term basis, which will still keep us way below this. But even if we have to get the GAN or something, we're never gonna exceed the 20%. Our long-term debt is below our ideal, what we said was the ideal, which was taken obviously from the state document. So we're good on that side of it, and if we do this and hang in there for a couple of years or so, the debt, while the payments won't go down, the gross percentage of debt will go down, and it will be possible that we could look at refinancing some of this stuff and rearrange it to get us out from underneath $500,000 payments to maybe $400,000 payments or $300,000 payments, or whatever we could do, because there are certain things like City Hall that are not that far away from getting paid. So.
And it's got its own fund that pays its note.
So, anyway, that, I thought that was kind of relevant. We already have this in place, and I didn't see anything in this that was out of line with what we were trying to accomplish. But we could borrow something on the short term, but we need no more long-term debt. I don't think any of us want that anyway.
Right.
But I really think it's important when we get to the budget in the spring that we start out with what are our revenues going to be, sans any brought in from any of these funds or anything, because we're going to segregate them and be putting money into them, and then we must make our operating expenses equal that. And so we have to start with a prioritization of our operating expenses and the stuff we have to have, utilities, salaries, insurance, all of that stuff comes off first, and then what we're going to find is I think we're going to find we have about $250,000 discretionary money that we actually can figure out if we want to buy something or do something with. I don't think it's very much at all, but I do think that if the work I've been doing is on that, and I do believe that if we took what it takes to keep the city in business, we've got to have gasoline for the vehicles, we've got to pay salaries for our employees, we've got to provide some sort of health insurance program, we've got to do certain things. If we take all of that out, I think we get down to about $250,000 that the board actually has the ability to determine something with that. And maybe what we determine is, well, that's $250,000. We put in one of these reserve funds to move that along quicker, or $250,000 and we pay off the little fire truck, or I don't know, or we pay off half the police cars. All those loans, or most of those loans, other than City Hall, are structured so that we can pay them without any penalties. City Hall's the one that keeps us from.
Well, this is getting a little ahead of myself, but my thought on this year's budget is we would do a zero-based budget with each of the departments and them identify what they need. So that Tom understands what they're asking for, and throughout the year, he'll know. That was in the plan.
We did that last year, and we're going to start a lot earlier this year, but it's we'll just see how the revenue
It's not
catches
like
up to
we're
the. We put them in categories: got to have, need, and want, or wish list.
It's not like we're gonna give them a 5% increase across the board or anything like that. We have to know what they need to run their departments. It has to be identified, and then we can get to where the board can decide if they need other things.
Right.
But we need a baseline, and you need to understand what the baseline is.
Right. I agree.
Not that we're not gonna give them back what they had, but we do wanna know what that means.
Right.
We wanna know what the staffing plan is for the police and fire departments. So that it's still gonna be tight
Oh, yeah.
for 2 or 3 years.
Well, actually, I mean, we're making a change in the way that it's been approached. And, we catch a lot of flack about this, but we've been coming down this road for a long time. And without really, addressing the infrastructure needs of the city at the same time. So, yes, we were able to have smaller budgets, but we weren't doing anything. And so now we've spent some money, but infrastructurally, we're very strong. We still need some help with the roads and stuff like that, but we're a lot better off. I mean, the fire department's not gonna come in here and ask for a fire truck. The police department, if they come, they won't need 6, 12, multiple cars. They'll need 2 maybe, and they'll have a drug fund that'll help with that. So, where we are, is we've covered most of all of that. Now it's about setting our plan that actually is our plan from now on into the future, so that every year we do it basically the same way, and then whatever the discretionary amount is at the end, after we get these funds funded, then that's where the city can invest. The city can buy something additional, buy some property or if we can't put it into the regular operating budget based upon the business sales tax increase or the other increases. Hopefully general revenue will continue to go up, and that will help us cross these bridges.
Because we're gonna have roads to build. For sure.
Do we, as far as presenting this to the board, do we want to, do y'all want to get the wording the way, I mean, I'm fine with the wording. I'm comfortable with what everybody has said. Do y'all want me to present it? Donna, do you want to present it? Do you want to present it? Or
No, I'm not.
I don't know.
Not because I don't believe in it, obviously, but it just works better.
okay.
Yeah,
Do you, I think what Brandy wants to do is make the adjustments for, to have this on the agenda. It's going out with the packets tomorrow. So she's wanting to make these adjustments tomorrow and get them out tomorrow. So I guess my question is, Brandy, do you feel like you have a consensus of what we want, or do we need to get it more concise?
I feel like I've got the consensus, but I can make the adjustments and send it and ask their approval. Will you be able to do that
I'll be at
sometime?
work, so just send it,
To your work email? Okay.
we'll send it to both of them.
Okay.
And you'll take care of getting the wording change for us?
I can adjust it based on my notes, and then I'll just have her review it to make
That's
sure
fine.
it's.
I mean, I
Okay.
trust y'all to do it. It doesn't need to tie up and they try to find me.
Well, if you, okay.
I mean, they'll
Okay.
report it.
And you want to present, you're wanting to present it? And I think that, these new classifications, I think a lot of people don't understand that. Just kind of familiarizing yourself with that would be good. And any questions, like I said, I can jump in there. I'll try to back you up on that.
I just long for the day that you don't give them a report that has parentheses.
You don't,
That's all I want. I
you
don't care
don't
if they
know.
I don't care if they all say $2. I just, as long as they don't have parentheses around the number, it'll be a good day.
You don't know. Well, on the expenditures when we're under, that's a
Well,
good
that's
one.
all right. That one report, but I'm talking about the fund balance.
Yeah.
Are we good for next week's payroll?
I have put in much prayer and I have been told that I think we're gonna squeeze by. But, it may not be, if it, depending on what your faith is, if you just wanna say a little, please.
Put them on our list, huh?
Well, I'm looking forward to saying thank you.
Okay.
We've had several conversations. Prayer was involved in that.
What's rough about this month is we have two payrolls. We got, and then we don't get our substantial, they're both before the, one was on the third, the second, payroll
Both from the
third.
sales tax company.
And both was before the 20th. And of course, I get that check, and then I get another one on like the 28th, 29th, big check. And of course, then I'll have another one on the 30th, and it's just wham, wham, wham. But we're, like I said, it's been,
That's why we need to have that extra money.
yeah, but it's, I think, like I said, any extra little, throw-ups, we will take.
Okay.
Well, you're obviously not worried about you getting out of town.
Hey, if I could stay longer, I would. Brandy made me come back Tuesday, have a meeting at 9 o'clock, doggone it.
She wanted to make sure that you were out there getting the money.
My wife's suitcase packed, but mine's not, so I don't know whether she wants me to go or not.
She needs it.
I think this is a big deal, and I think as we go forward with policy, I'm gonna probably be throwing some more ideas at you guys as far as policy, but it'll be more. I think this is the springboard, and just as long as everybody knows that that we've got this is a goal, and this is where we want to be, and we want to be fiscally responsible. I think that's is much more. It's not as it's more. I think it's more important to know where you want to be and then make a plan to get there than it is to actually just kind of be wandering
Winging
around.
it.
Yeah, as I call it, willy nilly. But yeah, I'm excited.
I think it's important too that we have this and stuff in writing in the plan, well documented, so that people can turn their attention to what is now, and this is what we're about, not lamenting over other stuff you can't do anything about.
Right.
You can fuss all you want to about whatever you want to fuss about, but the reality is that's not going to change. We are where we are, and but a solid plan lets people focus on where we're going, not where we've been.
Any more discussion on the old business? Do we have any new business? Anything we need to address for next month?
I'd like to just make a statement here, Cheryl.
Okay.
The city manager's report that you pulled up for us. First one will be this month at this meeting.
Okay.
It's pretty well completed now, it's ready for the package tomorrow. And then, once the board reviews it, then you go on the website. I want to thank you for bringing that to our attention, and we went for it right off the bat. It took a little organization, but I think we're there.
I have a question, just as to how we're gonna proceed from this point on. One of the things I guess we're saddled with is the revamping of policy, practice book, that sort of thing. And one time I heard you say you and Ryan were gonna put that together, and are we gonna all, or do we wanna? What's your thoughts on that? You wanna divide it up into sections and have each of us work a section, or how do you wanna do that?
This was what my thought. I thought each person on this committee would take a copy have a copy of what is approved and a copy that was worked on by Wade Hooper in the previous administration, and because there's a lot of good things in there that I think we can use, and then just anything that jumps out at you, I'd like to see this changed or that changed. And then I'd also like the department heads to do the same. And then maybe collaborate and have something that is useful to everybody. And I don't think one or two people, I'd like to have as many qualified eyes looking at it as possible. And I think it's important. When were we gonna put out that employee survey? I know we were gonna do one regarding, the health plan next time, but it seems like there was talk we were gonna do an employee survey on the handbook. Yeah, these are thoughts that have been going through my brain I hadn't really acted on. But I would like to have at least at a minimum the department heads in this committee involved on giving a presentation to the board.
If I might suggest, since he's not here, have Brian go through the book, send that out with a deadline.
Okay. Brian has a copy, and I asked him to be looking over it as we get ready to move that direction.
That way, if you want to give people a month or 2 months, or you want it back by the 1st of January, then give it to them now, and then start compiling in January.
Right. Okay.
Probably needs to get on out.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have your insurance plans for the employees, the meetings for the employees scheduled?
Done. Everybody's enrolled.
All right.
We're done.
I was telling Donna, I've been doing some research on the marketplace, the Obamacare marketplace, trying to identify policies and cost through there. Now, I know Tim will have a different price for us, but I trying to identify policies that are not HRA oriented, that are strictly deductible policies, where the major part of it is essentially the same, but the employee says, I want $1,000 deductible, they pay this. Our cost is the same, they have to pay the difference. Employee says, no, I'm single, I'm healthy, I want a $5,000 deductible. And obviously the amount of money we give per employee will go for more than that. So I'm trying to build something for us to look at right after the first of the year, so we have some time to look at it before we have to engage again in what we want to do. Because I really would like to get out of the HRA business. I said that. That to me is a contingent liability, and I think for these kinds of plans to work, we have to know what we're going to spend.
Right.
Especially in those areas we can control. I saw, or at least I got a notice or something that my utility, I don't know how that's going to impact us as a city.
Luckily, on our, I'm not gonna say it like that, we are substantially below projections in the utilities. So that's a good thing. I mean, I hate to hear that, but, let's see,
That's the good
utility.
news. The bad news is we haven't put in the rest of those streetlights yet, which is going
Right.
to tear your utilities fucked up, so.
Let's see, utilities. We are, after 3 months, we are $6,314 under projections as far as utility expense. Of course, I think we've flatlined it, so you're gonna go quite a bit up in the winter months. But
Surely we didn't.
I think we did.
We just have to go down to the clothes closet and borrow some heavier coats.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a warmer winter.
Where's global warming when you need it, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, do we have any citizens' comments?
No. No, you didn't sign. We told y'all, didn't we, Bob? We said, go ahead and sign in anticipation.
I didn't sign up, but I want to thank the Finance Review Committee. I think because of your diligence and harmonious ability to work together, that you're turning around the budget situation that the city is in. And just keep doing what you're doing, and I think we'll be in good shape.
Oh, we put you down every time. We just go ahead.
We'll just
we
type him
go-
in.
Yeah, we just go ahead and type that in, number one.
Just write me in.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Absolutely.
Did I get that
Second.
one right? All in favor?
Uh,